Today, I'm going to share with you how to master LSAT sufficient assumption questions step by step. These are one of the most frustrating types of questions on the LSAT, in part because they involve formal logic, meaning that diagramming may be useful. But the good news is, with the right step-by-step approach, these can become one of the easiest question types to solve and even predict the correct answer. Today, I'll break it down for you. First, for those who don't know me, my name is Steve Schwartz. I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005, and I personally increased my own LSAT score from a 152 to a 175. Now today, I'm going to share with you how to spot sufficient assumption questions, how to break down the argument into manageable pieces, how to predict the missing link, and how to confidently pick the correct answer. First, let's talk about what LSAT sufficient assumption questions are actually asking you to do. They're asking you to find the missing piece that guarantees the argument's conclusion. It's not about making the argument better, like a strengthening question is. They're about making it perfect. Your job is to take the premises, combine them with the correct answer into a formula that guarantees the conclusion. It's like connecting two separate puzzle pieces. The correct answer creates an airtight link between the evidence and the conclusion. Now, of course, before you solve a question, you want to make sure it actually is a sufficient assumption question. You want to look for phrases like allows, enables, follows logically if assumed, and properly inferred if assumed. So for example, a question stem might say something like, which one of the following, if assumed, allows the conclusion to be properly drawn? Or it might say, the conclusion follows logically if which one of the following is assumed. So your keywords are synonymous with sufficiency, or you're going to see the word if in the stem. Those are your indicators that you're dealing with a sufficient assumption question. Now, of course, as with so many questions in LSAT logical reasoning, you want to break down the argument into three separate parts. What's the conclusion? What are the premises, meaning the evidence? And what's the gap between the evidence and the conclusion? The conclusion, of course, is the claim the author is trying to prove. The premises are the evidence provided to support that conclusion, and the gap is the missing piece that if you shore it up, if you tighten it, if you close it, you're going to then guarantee the conclusion. So for example, if we had an argument where the evidence said every student in the math club enjoys solving puzzles, then we have a conclusion saying that Lucas enjoys solving puzzles. The gap here is that the argument's assuming that Lucas is actually in the math club. Without this, the conclusion is not guaranteed. So once you spotted the gap, you want to predict the missing link, pre-phrase, think about what it might look like. If you predict the answer before looking at the choices, you're going to save time and reduce your mistakes. Now, as I mentioned earlier, sufficient assumption questions oftentimes, but not always, contain conditional reasoning, aka formal logic. So you might see conditional statements. For example, if we had an argument where the premise says, if someone exercises regularly, they are healthy, and the conclusion is that Sophia is healthy, the missing link here is the argument is assuming Sophia exercises regularly. If we learned that as new information, that in fact Sophia does exercise regularly, that would then activate the conditional statement in the evidence, guaranteeing the conclusion about Sophia. So this is new information. We're viewing the correct answer as new information, as a missing link that when combined with the evidence will guarantee the conclusion, leaving no ambiguity at all. Now let's look at another argument that isn't quite as conditional in nature, but still has that missing link. If we had an argument where the premise said this year the team won 10 games, last year they won 8 games, and the conclusion said the team performed better this year than last year, a missing link that if we provide it will guarantee the conclusion would be something like the number of games won is the only measure of performance. If we learned that as new information, that information, again, the number of games won being the only measure of performance, when combined with the evidence regarding this specific team winning 10 games this year and 8 games last year, that would then guarantee the conclusion that in fact the team performed better this year than last year. Now, once you have predicted the missing link, the new information that, if true, is your sufficient assumption guaranteeing the argument, you want to now go forward and evaluate the answer choices carefully. First, ask yourself, does it bridge the gap? The correct answer has to directly connect the premises to the conclusion. Second, ask yourself, is it too weak? Sufficient assumptions can be strong, they can be extreme, they can be bold and definitive. That's totally fine. The only thing we want to consider here is this information, if true, enough to guarantee the argument? On the flip side, is it introducing irrelevant terms that bring in new ideas unrelated to the argument? And is it reversing or negating the logic of what we're actually looking for? If so, that's going to be out and we can eliminate it. Now, here's an example of an argument that might do just that, reversing or negating the logic. If we had an argument where the evidence says all scientists are curious, and we had a conclusion saying all curious people are innovative, and then we have an answer choice saying if someone is innovative, then they are curious, that reverses the logic. It might be tempting because it's using the keywords that are in the argument, but it's wrong because it gets things backwards. The correct answer might instead be something like all curious people are innovative, because this combines the evidence to the conclusion in an airtight way, leaving no ambiguity at all. Now, I'll share a more advanced tactic to use in just a moment, but before I do, I wanted to let you know that if you're struggling with sufficient assumption questions or anything else on the LSAT, my team and I would be glad to help you out on your journey to scoring a 170 or above on your official LSAT test day. At LSAT Unplugged, we offer live online classes via Zoom, on-demand video courses, small group coaching, and one-on-one coaching, and we can focus primarily or even exclusively on sufficient assumption questions or logical reasoning in general or anything else on the LSAT giving you trouble. The great thing about one-on-one coaching is that it's personalized to your individual needs. You don't have to cover areas that you're already solid on, and instead you can focus specifically or exclusively on your weak areas. We can even craft for you a personalized day-by-day study plan to master those weak areas. If you're interested in finding out more, you can check out the links below to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out. Now, I mentioned earlier that you want to prephrase or predict the correct answer in logical reasoning, but sometimes the correct answer will match your prephrase logically, but it may not appear to do so. The thing is, LSAC loves to use the contrapositive to make things harder to spot, to disguise the correct answer. And so if you're not seeing your prediction in the answer choices and your prediction is a conditional statement, consider looking for the contrapositive. That may be the way LSAC framed the idea, and that's what you're going to want to pick. Now, to recap again, here's that 5-step process for solving any sufficient assumption question on the LSAT. First, spot that it is in fact a sufficient assumption using keywords like allows, enables, follows logically if assumed, or properly inferred if assumed in the question stem. Second, break down the argument into premises, meaning evidence, conclusion, and spot what the gap is between the two. Then step 3, predict the missing link between the two. Step 4, evaluate the answer choices systematically, one by one. And 5, of course, avoid common traps that LSAC loves to use to make the wrong answer choices more appealing and to make the right answer seem unappealing or discouraging. Now, if you'd like my help on your journey to scoring a 170 or above on the LSAT and mastering sufficient assumption questions or anything else on the LSAT giving you trouble, my team and I would be glad to help you out. You can check out the links below to book a call with me and my team. And in the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.